Right, so again, it is the daily market analysis. We are on the 28th of August. It is Wednesday. So if you are on the stream, drop a message, say hi, let me know where you're joining us from, ask questions, suggest a trade setup, ask for a trade review. I'm here to help you. If you're watching this after the live stream, then please leave a comment, ask a question in the comments. I'll be happy to address your questions in the next video or in the comments as well. Okay. Now, with all that said, a quick disclaimer: any information contained on this webinar should not be construed as advice and is presented as educational material only. The contents of this webinar are not intended to be a recommendation to trade a financial product, so please remember that your objectives, financial situation, and needs has not been considered and you should consider its appropriateness to your circumstances. Now, that said, take that away. What has happened since the last time we spoke? Looking at the news, we had early this morning at 9:30 a.m. GMT plus 8, the Aussie CPI year on year being released. It was a 3.8. They were expecting it to be at a 3.4. It was released at a 3.5. All right. So released at 3.5, the immediate thought, the immediate reaction was that at 3.5, the Aussie CPI was a green number. So the first reaction was, oh, it's too high, which we saw the Aussie dollar push to the upside on release of the news. You can see right there, it went from 6790 within the hour, pushed up to as high as 6812 before coming back and sitting along that 0.68 resistance level. Right, so that was the first reaction on the CPI, that it was a green number, it was 3.5, it was too high. But in the scheme of things, if you look at it, it was a 3.8. It is now 3.5. So what that means is inflation growth for the Aussies actually did slow down. It did slow down from a 3.8 to a 3.5, but it just did not slow down as much as expected to a 3.4, missing by 0.1%. So that's why we saw the Aussie dollar spike up, came right back down, and sitting just under that 0.68 resistance level. The question now is that with the CPI at 3.5, is this going to be low enough, right? Following on with the trend of in July where it was 4 and then it came out at 3.8. Now in August from 3.8 to 3.5. This last two data points forming a slight trend. Is it going to be enough to signal to the RBA that inflation growth is slowing down? There is no need to consider a rate hike scenario in the future. They can still stay on the current levels, and if it does drop further, they could look to a rate cut scenario maybe later into the year. That's the big question the markets are asking, well, not markets are asking, but the markets are thinking about on how it reflects or how it will impact the RBA's rate decision. In my view, I think that it looks like it's slowed down or showing a trend of it slowing down enough, um, forming a trend of a slowdown. So that's going to support the idea that the RBA would not have to consider a rate hike scenario, and they could look towards a rate cut scenario possibly towards the end of the year as previously planned. Right, so that's what happened on the Aussie CPI earlier this morning. Then, with yesterday, we had the US consumer confidence. It was a 100.3, revised up to 101.9, expected 100.9, so it was 100.3, so I expect a small increase. It went from 101.9 to 103.3. So a slight improvement in consumer confidence. Improvement in consumer confidence generally should lead to an improvement in retail sales numbers because consumers get more confident with the market performance of the market situation. They're more likely to spend more, they're more likely to spend more, right? So consumer confidence leads to retail sales numbers. A stronger confidence could lead to better retail sales, and that's also partially why we see the dollar index now bouncing off that 100.55 level, which it tested early this morning and bounced right up. Okay, I'll zoom in a little bit. There we go. Okay, so that's what's happened on the dollar index with the consumer confidence from last night. Now, for the rest of the day, see, we had construction work done quarter on quarter for the Aussies. Didn't pay too much attention to that. FOMC member Wallace speaking at the Global FinTech Festival in Mumbai. Didn't pay too much attention to that either. I don't think it's anything interesting. Apart from interlinking fast payment systems, we have in just under an hour's time, UBS economic expectations for the Swiss, the Euro money supply, private loans for the Eurozone, not too concerned. From the MPC in the UK, member Mann speaking at the Value of Economic Research for Policy, don't think it's going to do too much either. And then crude oil inventories. With that, again, not too much. So I'm not too concerned about the news at this point through to tomorrow, only through to tomorrow, where we do have the German CPI, the Spanish CPI to be released. A little bit of a blip expected from the German CPI, especially as it could go from a 0.3 to a 0, right? A good slowdown in inflation growth for the Germans. And then tomorrow night, we have the GDP for the US looking at a 2.8% quarter on quarter. Right, so a good improvement from the last data in May. Now, with all that said, so not a lot of news to pay attention to. Markets now looking like it's retracing slightly, still continuing on from yesterday's retracement. Well, yesterday retraced and then continued lower. Now retracing again, looking like it might continue lower again. The question now is we're going to be looking at the key levels and where it could react to and where it could head towards. So with that said, looking at the dollar index. And before that, let me check. Okay, good. And before that, a quick good morning to Diana Romachuku and Augusto. How are you doing? Long time no see. Diana, I just sent out the link for my mailing list. Do jump onto the link. You could do it right now. You could do it right after the session. Jump onto the link. Sign up for the mailing list. I've got things that I will send out at random intervals to you guys where you might be interested in. Okay, just some little tidbits and stuff that I could be sending out. Now, looking at the dollar index, it's changed quite quickly. It's changed quite quickly from what I was planning to say, right? So I moved everything up, anticipating that we could see it push higher. But right now, what we have here on the dollar index is updating the levels. Support is at 100.55. We've seen it test on Monday. It bounced back up on Tuesday. And then on Tuesday night, it came right back down early. Wednesday morning, it retested 100.55, set right across, and then pushed back up. I think it's a little bit small. Let me zoom in a little bit more for you guys. There we go. Okay, hope that's better. Now with that, as it pushed down pretty much as expected, because we were talking about it consolidating along 100.80 yesterday. It did that 100.80, and then it stayed below 101.10, stayed below that point. Broke that level down to 100.55, down to 100.55. So now that it tested this point, bounced back up, came close to that 50% level, right? That pin bar right there, and now showing like it might push back down again, right? Just before we started this session, I was ready to say, I was planning to say that the dollar index could trade up. So it was right there as it was forming that green candle. I was looking for it to trade up towards that 61.8 level before possibly pushing back down again. But with the way price action is forming and with that pin bar at 100.90, rejecting very similar levels that we saw from yesterday, I do think that we might see that downside continuation. Right, I'll take that one away. I'll leave it there. See, so that trend line came up to that point and it was broken. Right, came up to that point and it was broken. Now pushing back down again. I would be anticipating that today being the 28th, we're coming towards the end of the month as well. Right, dollar index is back to trading along 100.80, could trade lower to 100.55 again, the support level. At this point, again, because there is no news, no major news that could drive it a lot lower, I think that it's likely we could see the dollar index sit along that support level, right? So trade down to that support level could range, well, if not broken, could range between 100.55 and 100.80, 90. Right, so that's 100.55. If the support level, if let's do this, if support level not broken, could range between that point. So I'm looking at this to push down towards that support level again. If it doesn't break, we've seen it test once, test 2 times. If it doesn't break, it could stay within this range like that. All right, up until we get a little bit more information about the possible rate cut scenario to come from the FOMC, whether it's going to be a 25 basis points or more likely a 50 basis points, then we could see a stronger reaction of that support. Okay, so that's what we're looking at. Does that make sense to you all? Put it into the chat and let me know. And hey, Linley, how are you doing? So that's the view on the dollar index. Some downside, but limited, possibly down to that 100.55 level. Okay, then looking at the Kiwi dollar, right? Looking at the Kiwi dollar, it's formed up very nicely from yesterday. We talked about this as it pushed right back up. We finished the session right there along that support level of 6215. It continued up through the night, went up as high as a good 20 pips before getting pushed right back down, possibly being impacted by the Aussie dollar and that brief recovery. in strength from the dollar index, on the dollar index. So Kiwi push right back down. If you are in that trade, you could have seen 20. You see it come back down to break even, not stop loss, but a bit of a loss. Now pushing back up again. I still think that we could see it get up to that 6280 level. But I still think we could see it trade up to 6280. We don't need this for now. Take, and we'll keep that. Yep, we'll keep that one, but we'll take that one away. Right? So check this. Check the level. That's pushed up. That area is fine. That support is reasonable. So if you're not already in this trade on the Kiwi from what we talked about yesterday, then it wouldn't make sense to get in at 6255 because we're anticipating on H4, if you look at it, a brief hesitation here at 6280. Right? So again, back to the H1, I wouldn't do anything on the Kiwi unless we see that dollar index drop, we see the Kiwi dollar push up, breaking above 6280. So we look at 6290. Stop loss would be tight at 20 pips. Take profit, we could go to 70 to the upside. Okay, that still feels like a little bit of a stretch because we're not expecting a big drop on the dollar unless it breaks that 100.55 level, and we could see it come down to this point. I don't see that at this current juncture, but if it breaks that support, we could see that move down, then we're going to see the Kiwi dollar spike up towards that key resistance at 0.63. Okay, so 6290, 20 to 70 to the upside. Right, okay. Buy 0.6290, stop loss 20, take profit 70 to the upside. Then, so nothing on the Kiwi yet, then onto the Aussie. It's bouncing around, it's moved almost as planned. So right here yesterday I said it's going to come down. It came down a little bit, not as much as I thought. It pushed right back up and then it came right back down. So it's moving along that zigzag that I drew from yesterday at this resistance level, right? At this resistance level, there was, right after the news, I was looking at 6810, could buy it up. Came close, didn't break higher, came right back down, sat along that resistance level, and that trend line still holding it up. Right? That trend line still holding it up. So could there be a counter trend? Could there be a double top on the Aussie dollar and then a big rejection back down? It could be possible, but I'm just looking at the way the dollar is reacting right now. It seems a little bit unlikely, right? If you're looking for a counter trend move on the dollar, you'll be looking at 6780, 20 pip stop. Down to about this point of 38.2. Yeah, I don't see that. I don't see that kind of big move happening. No. I would say again on the Aussie, then you'll be looking at 6810, 20 to a 40 to the upside. Keep it simple, keeping it very simple. right? So we were still looking for reaction, right? We are looking this time now for a break of resistance. Then we're looking to buy at 0.6810 20 40 to the upside. Hey Basanta, good morning. How are you doing? Now that's going down. That's sitting there, not going down yet. But that's forming up. That makes sense. That's sitting in that point. Move that right across. Okay, good. Needs to break up that resistance to the upside. Okay. Then looking at the Aussie Kiwi. Aussie Kiwi has been reacting well for a very long time, and then the Aussie came around this morning and spiked it out. So it came down. We were talking about this breaking out of this area, right? Breaking out of this area, which we'll take away now, breaking below 1.0890 to the downside. It came down a good 30 pips before the news this morning, spiking the Aussie Kiwi back up again. And then now it's testing, looking like it might test a bit lower again, right? If the Aussie dollar does push up above that resistance and push higher, then we're likely to see the Aussie Kiwi come right back down again. At this point, you wouldn't want to be looking at that because how it's bounced off at this point. Below 1.0880, stop loss would be about 20 pips. Your take profit, I would say that you could even be looking at a good 60 to the downside. No, you want to pay attention to that, sorry. So you want to pay attention to this point here, which means that it could only come down a good 30 pips at the most. I would say that this would be a trade that you would want to consider early. You might be taking a little bit of a risk at this point, but you might be looking at a trade here. 1.0885. You'll be looking at a 25 pip stop just past that point, just above that trend line, and then you'll be looking at a 40 pip take profit to the downside. Right? This is not the most ideal setup, but it does look like it's continuing on with that trend to the downside on the Aussie Kiwi to come down towards that low to test. You could even go down to that and then consider hesitation at 1.0844, 1.0845. Okay, so that's what you could be looking out for on the Aussie Kiwi. Right, if you're going to do that, I would say that's quite reasonable. Right. Then, so we have done the Kiwi, which we're looking for a continuation to the upside, bouncing off that support, breaking above 6280. You look to buy at 6290. Aussie dollar, we look for it to break that resistance. You look to buy at 6810. Combine that together, you'll be looking right now, disclaimer applies, to be selling the Aussie Kiwi down towards that 1.08 level. Okay, then we look into the pound dollar. Right, pound dollar has been a bit annoying. Right, it has been a little bit annoying. I got into this right after our stream, so we were right there as we spoke about it to push up. Right after that, push right up. The next hour, continued up. So I got in, I think I got in a little bit early, and then it came right back down. I thought, not a good setup. Got in a little bit too early. It came back down, and then it started pushing back up. There was a trade. I think I got out a little bit about that point. I didn't take the whole thing, right? So it's bounced around a little bit too much for my liking. It is still sitting along that trend line, right? It's still sitting along that trend line to the upside. That makes sense. Okay, I don't need 50. We have that big support there. So the trend line is right there. Okay. What you're looking for now is if the dollar does continue, to push back down, right? If it does continue to push back down, then you'll be looking for the pound dollar to go up, but it's too near 1.3240, 1.33, but there is a level right here that it could hesitate or reverse from. So I'm not super keen on buying it up. I'm not super keen on a setup like that, right? That's a 25 to a 50. It makes sense on a setup, on a pure risk to reward idea, but there is that level here at 1.3266 or 1.3265. So I would actually prefer to look at it push up towards the resistance here at 1.33. Right? Look for it to get up towards 1.33 and see a reaction there, which if I go to the H4, even on a daily, you see that this was where we were on the 23rd of March 2022, right? 2022, 22nd, 23rd of March, where it tested and came right back down. So that's what we're looking at. There, that point there. So you want it to break clearly if it's going to head up further, but I'm actually thinking that we might see a bigger reaction or an interesting reaction at that resistance level. Euro Swiss franc, yes, I can do that shortly. Not a worry. Okay, so on the pound dollar, we're looking for it to could trade up to 1.33 resistance. Look for reaction at the strong resistance. Oh wait, what am I doing? Better way. Pound dollar. There we go. So nothing yet on the pound dollar because it could trade up to 1.33. We're looking for a reaction at the strong resistance level. Okay. So that push up towards that point, that makes sense. Then on to the euro dollar. It pushed down. I had a quick scalp here on the euro. It came down. I was highlighting this, I think, on the live chat here, on the live stream here earlier today, that we could be looking at a possible stronger retrace back down. You'll also notice that it came right off the Bollinger before coming back in. So I was scalping that down. And now it's bounced back up again because of that dollar index showing some downside push. Now on the euro dollar, take that. So that pushed up slightly and then came right back down. You could have hit a stop loss of 25 on the euro dollar. For that, the range on this euro dollar between 1.11 1.10 and 1.12 seems to be maintaining, right? It seems to be maintaining within this range. It's going to come back in. I would say that euro dollar is going to continue ranging only if it breaks above 1.12, then we could look at, because it's, as much as say 1.12, it could also be 1.1185. So it's not a big, there's a small range with another sub level in there as well. Okay, so euro dollar, and it's a bit odd that we're looking at other pairs and the pound and the euro seems to be the least interesting at this point. Currently ranging, or could range between 1.1160 and 1.1200, and 1.12, right? So you have a 40 pip range, which could even be as low as a 25 pip range. So let it come back in. What I think is going to happen is it's going to come back in and then it's going to bounce around here, or even a bit less, until possibly tomorrow's GDP number, or until another talk about an interest rate decision from the Feds. Dollar retracing slightly, that's why we're seeing the euro dollar come back down, but I still think that it's likely to push back in, also because you can see that the TSRI MACD is starting to turn back with the histograms pushing back up, so you're possibly looking at this push back in. Okay, right, then onto euro pound. Ronaldo, we were talking about this through the stream earlier. It's broken lower. I didn't get this. I was busy on my yen and my gold trades. It broke that 8450 level that we highlighted from yesterday. Breaking down, push lower. It's now as low as 23 pips to the downside. If you're already on this trade, you would put that to break even. You would keep your take profit at about 45 pips towards that support level and let it run. Give it a shot. If you're not in this trade, then pay attention to that big push to the downside, right? Pay attention to that pushing lower. That is done. But you'll also notice that when it comes down to 0.84, we have seen since June a reaction. Again, in July, through July, we've seen a reaction here holding that support level. And I was saying earlier that it's just too close to the support. It's not worth, I'm not going to look to try and sell this down because it's 8422 right now. To trade it down to 84 or even 8390, more messy pips to pick up. So I'll be looking for this, for the euro pound to come down to that 0.84 support level and possibly bounce, and then maybe look for it to break or bounce back up. It all comes down to what's the euro going to do within, how is it going to break out from this range, and also what's the pound going to do as it comes towards this resistance level of 1.33, right? If you think about it, pound going up towards 1.33, testing a very strong resistance level. In fact, because very strong, I should put it in green. Or in green, yes, right? So if it tests that level, it could turn back down. Then pound pushing up is going to see that come down to the support, and then we could see, so it kind of aligns where you see a reaction on the pound at a massive resistance level. which could also lead to the euro having a big reaction at a strong, relatively strong support level. Okay, so it all aligns. Gotta wait and see. Gotta let it develop. Any questions so far? Put it into the chat and let me know. And while you're doing that, we'll look into the US yen. This was a trade that I got into. Was explaining this earlier this morning actually. We were looking for it to test up and push back down. It came up. It went as high as that 50. So it came up to that 50, rejected. As it rejected, I was going, okay, it's rejecting. I'm gonna wait and see. Waited, and then when it finally broke, like closed lower, got into that trade. Stop loss just above that 50. I think I had it at 35. Right, and then take profit was down to that point here. So that's 100, just about 100 pips to the downside. So that was easy, relatively straightforward and easy on the US yen. Now, as it sits along this point here at 144.40, you would see that it's dropped, retraced up to that 50% retracement level, rejected, back down, it's retraced. I don't think, let's see, retrace right back up to that 50% again. It's not ready to push down yet. I am still looking to sell the US yen to the downside. I don't think it's ready at this point. I want to see this TSRI MACD cross over. This is my sped up, my faster MACD. I want to see that cross over. I want to see this push down from that 50% fib retracement level. Could be a trade that I'll be looking at about 144.25, about there. Stop loss would be 35 again. Take profit, I would have, because it's a lower low right now, I would be trying for 75 to the downside. But I'll be ready to close anywhere. I'll be ready to close anywhere in that area there. Okay? So that's what I'll be looking out for on the US yen. In fact, you could even get away with a 30 pip stop on that, because once it pushes down, it might sit there a little bit, and then next it might be like yesterday, right? This was the where was it, 3 o'clock, right? Testing, then it come down a little bit, sit there, and then only on the 3rd hour it pushes down. So you might see it sit, come down, sit across, and then on the 3rd hour start pushing to the downside. So that's what I'll be looking out for. 144.25, 30 to 75 to the downside. Here we go. See, so 144.35, 25, 30 to 75. 25s, 144.25, stop loss 30, take profit 75 to the downside for the US yen. Okay, then on to, I just saw the comment from Basanta, we need both peeps and peace. Absolutely. Right. So on the euro yen, same thing. We were right here yesterday, right, where we say it was going to test that trend line, possibly reject and push back down. So we're looking at 161.90 to push down. That would have played out very nicely. I didn't catch this, right? I was looking at my yen and gold trades. I didn't catch the euro yen. Let me know if you did catch this. I'll be very keen to know. It did push down for a good 110 pips, 112 pips to the downside. That's done. That's now sitting, euro yen sitting at 161 with a bit of a downside potential forming. Wouldn't do anything unless it breaks 160.70 in that level. Then you'll be looking at 160.50. Stop loss would be about 30 pips. Take profit would be about 100 to the downside. That's what I would do on the euro yen. You still see it pushing. I don't need that. Pushing to the downside, needs to break that point. And if I drag this right across, you see how important this level is, right? Since 13th of August, it bounced off 19th, 26th, and it closed again on the 28th. It needs to sit there, break down, then you look to sell down towards that 159.50 support level on the euro yen. Could go a little bit lower, but I think that'd be fair. Then onto the pound yen again, same thing, right? We were right here. We were looking for it to test that level at 192 and reject and sell down. We were looking at 192.70. You would have just caught that or caught that halfway through to the downside. You would have seen a good 100 pips before it bounced. That's done. Take that away. Again, if you got into the pound yen, put it into chat, put it into the comments. Let me know how you went. It's pushed down and bounced. It's sitting in that consolidation right now. I wouldn't do anything on the pound yen now because you have that trend line, right? You have that trend line pushing up. It's right in the middle of this 192. I'd be happy to call this a resistance. And that trend line as a bit of a diagonal support. It's right in the middle. Even if you did sell this, your stop loss could be easily threatened. You'd be looking at 190.93. Your stop loss would be about 50 pips. Your take profit would be about 60, but it could bounce right back up, stop you out. So I wouldn't do anything on the pound yen. Ideally, I would like it to go up here, test, and then reject back down. But I think what's likely to happen is that it will sit here, it push down a little bit, and it will do that before it does that, and then turn back down again. So nothing on the pound yen at this point, right? I still remember I've got a Euro Swiss franc to do. Before that, we'll look into the US Swiss. To start, it's pushed down, tested, bounced back up slightly. Now, if you look at this, that's still trying to push down. If you look at the KSRI MACD, looking like some momentum, beginning of a momentum to the downside. This could again push down. Let me see. Big move. Well, we know why it's retraced because it's broken that level. So it's broken, came back up, test, looking to continue back down towards the support. So you could be looking at 8420, stop loss 30, take profit a good 60-70 pip to the downside towards that support level at 8350, which if you look at it on H4 was where it reacted very violently in December last year. So again, back to the current, that's what you'll be looking out for, and it looks quite interesting. Something seems to be developing, especially on the dollar index. I'll tell you more about that maybe as it firms up to my expectation. Okay, so I'm looking at that 8420 30 to 70 to the downside. Squeezy, we're looking to sell at 0.8420. Yep, 30 to 70 to the downside. 30, take profit, 70 to the downside. Okay. Dollar index is sitting right there. That's fair. US CAD support level of 1.3465 now becomes a resistance. It broke, it's bounced, it's tested, it shows like it's pushing back down again. If you're in this trade, a lot of up and down, but if you're not, then I'll still be looking at that same point as I'll be going a bit lower, 1.3450. Okay, that's fair. That's okay. Back to the H1. We're looking at that. So 1.3450. No, give it a bit more space. 1.3445, which is the momentum that we're seeing here. Stop loss 25. Take profit, I wouldn't do that at 25. I would say give it a chance. I don't see 80 though. Right, give it a chance for 80, but I could hesitate at 1.3400 would be interesting. I think it could push down. What I think could happen is it come down, test, bounce, then maybe break down again. Okay, so 1.3445, 25 to 80 to the downside. Sell at 1.3445, stop loss 30, 25. Yes, 25 to 80. Okay. 25, take profit, 80 with a hesitation at 1.34. There we go. Then gold. Been trading gold very happily, right? So it came down. We were talking about this yesterday. Could retest 2500 and bounce to 2515. It didn't go as low as 2500. It came down. I was looking at this on the 15-minute time frame. So this was where we were yesterday, right? So I was looking for it to come down to test 2500. It came down to 2505, bounced. And then it came down again to 2505. And at that point, I thought it's not going, it doesn't seem like it's going to get to 2500. When it bounced, I got into that. And then stop loss, take profit to the upside, pushed up. If actually I had my take profit up towards that resistance, but then as it pushed up, when it came outside of the Bollinger, I closed out of the trade, and that was it. Okay, so that was that quickish trade on gold to the upside. Today, again, we were looking at it at that same level at 2505. Yesterday it bounced. Well, yesterday it bounced here. Yesterday in the morning on Tuesday it bounced at 2505. Again in the afternoon, again at night, all the way back up to the resistance. Again this afternoon at 2505. I didn't get into this because we're on the stream right now. But what we're looking at is if it breaks above 2512, it could, I do think that it could get up to that, at least that 25 level, right? So on gold, I think that above 25.12 could trade up to 25.25. Yeah. Okay. I know a couple of you like trading gold. I know a couple of you have PTSD from trading gold. Um, it moves very quickly. It's something that I would, if I'm in a trade, I would watch. I wouldn't get into a trade in gold and let it run. While doing a stream, I would watch it quite closely because it could like do that, spike up. The next moment, it comes right back down. If you miss a take profit, if you had a take profit at 25.30, you would have just missed it, and the next moment it comes right back down, and you'll be in a loss, right? So it's something that you want to watch closely and pay attention to very closely. Now, with all that said, Diana was asking for the Euro Swiss franc, right? Euro Swiss franc. Now, looking at this, let me clear this out again. It's at 94 right now. We have that downward push. We have that move up. It's just at that 50% level right there. So yes, you would want it to break 0.94, or you had it at 0.9440. So you're looking for a bit of a rebound. 9440. 9440. You're looking for a rebound. So you're looking for it to, I think what Dyna's planning is that it could do that and then back down again, right? Also because of that gap in this area here, and thinking that it could move down to that 50% here at, or in that area of 9440, between that 60 and 50. That does make sense. That does make sense. I'm just not sure whether it would go back up that much, right? I just don't know whether it'll go back up that much. Just thinking that if it goes back up, it's either the euro dollar that's going to push back up very strongly, it's trying, or the Sweezy. I'm just thinking, which one would it be? The Sweezy, it looks like it's pushing down, and combination of both could actually lead to that. So two thoughts is that either you're looking to sell down at 9440, tight stop no more than 15, take profit down again to that round number of 94, firstly, or it will sit there, it could sit right across, and then it could break down. So that case, you'll be looking at 9390, stop loss about 20, take profit, be down to like 40 there, 40, right? So it'll be combination. It could be push that and then it could go all the way down, but you want to see what happens at that point. Okay? So that's the thought on Euro Swiss franc. And Lasanta's asking for Aussie yen. We were just talking about this, I think this morning. Feels like this morning, yeah. same thing, right? Diagonal trend line, resistance level up here. Cool, awesome, Diana. Resistance up here, so we're looking for this. If the US yen pushes up, it could drag the Aussie yen up. If the Aussie dollar pushes up, it could drag the Aussie yen up. So wouldn't do anything yet unless it pushes, breaks above that trend line 9840.25 to 55 to the upside on the Aussie yen. Okay, so watch. I think we're talking about this. We're watching that trend line and we're going to see what happens as it breaks up above those points there. There. Okay, so with that said, let's see, yes. Okay, with that said, please, please, please remember, trade well, trade safe. There is not a lot of news to be had, so if it doesn't move, don't try and force a trade. I will post a. So what also happens for those of you who are new, I will also post this summary on my TradingView. You can go check it out on TradingView. If you're watching this after as a recording, then you can also um, leave a comment, leave a feedback in the comments below. And the mailing list link is there. Do jump onto the mailing list as well. Time to time, I'll send out some interesting things for you guys. With that said, I might keep the stream running on for a little bit. We'll see how it goes, whether anything interesting sets up. And if not, I'll see you all tomorrow. Take care now.